Emergency. Revolt. 34 Republicans. The claim is everywhere. Lawmakers have joined a 25th Amendment push to remove President Trump. Here's the reality check. The 25th Amendment is not a button that Congress can press because a headline goes viral. Section 4, the part people mean when they say, remove the president, is triggered by the vice president and a majority of the cabinet through a written declaration sent to congressional leaders. So tonight, we're doing this the only way that matters. What's confirmed, what's unconfirmed, what the Constitution actually requires, and what proof would look like if this were real. The 34 Republicans claim matters less because of the number, and more because it signals something bigger. Public confidence in continuity of government is being tested. Markets, allies, federal agencies, and voters all react to the same thing: uncertainty. But the U.S. Constitution is built to separate noise from process. And on the 25th Amendment, process is everything. Confirmed, what the 25th Amendment actually says. The 25th Amendment is part of the Constitution, with Section 4 governing cases where a president is declared unable to discharge duties. Section 4 begins with the vice president plus a majority of the cabinet, the principal officers of the executive departments, or a Congress-created body. They must send a written declaration to the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore of the Senate. If that happens, the vice president becomes acting president immediately. The president can respond with a written declaration that no inability exists, triggering a time-bound dispute process. If contested, Congress decides, and to keep the VP as acting president, it requires 2/3 votes in both the House and Senate within the required window. Unconfirmed, what the viral title claims. 34 Republicans joined. Unconfirmed. No constitutional trigger is initiated by 34 Republicans as a category. Lawmakers can call for action, draft resolutions, or pressure cabinet officials. But Section 4 does not start with a congressional headcount. 25th Amendment revolt, unconfirmed framing. Section 4 is an executive branch declaration process first, and a supermajority congressional decision second if contested. Administration in crisis. This is a subjective characterization unless supported by specific, verifiable events. Resignations, official statements, filed documents. What would confirm a real Section 4 attempt? A real attempt leaves a paper trail. At minimum, credible confirmation would include a documented written declaration from the VP and cabinet majority, and acknowledgement by congressional leadership that it was received, and if disputed, public confirmation that Congress is assembling under the Section 4 timeline. If you don't have those, you don't have Section 4, you have talk. In recent January 2026 coverage, multiple major outlets have described renewed public discussion around the 25th Amendment, framed as a response to political controversy and public debate about presidential conduct and judgment. Important distinction: public debate is not constitutional action. The press can cover calls, lawmakers can make statements, social media can amplify them. But Section 4 requires the vice president and cabinet majority to cross an extraordinary institutional line. And that's why most serious coverage emphasizes the high threshold and the rare, extreme nature of the mechanism. Let's translate Section 4 into plain English with the actual legal sequence. Trigger: the vice president and a majority of the cabinet transmit a written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of office. It goes to the Speaker and the President pro tempore. Immediate transfer: the vice president becomes acting president immediately upon that declaration. The president can contest. The president can send a written declaration that no inability exists. 4-day counter window: the VP and cabinet can reassert inability within 4 days. Congress decides. Congress must assemble quickly if not in session, and then must vote within the constitutional window. The supermajority barrier: to keep the vice president as acting president, Congress must find the president unable by 2/3 in both houses. If they don't, the president resumes powers. That's not a revolt. That's a constitutional firebreak designed for the most extreme scenarios. And it's intentionally hard to use. Here's who actually matters in Section 4. The vice president. Without the VP, Section 4 doesn't start. The cabinet majority, They're the co-signers who make it real. Speaker of the House and President pro tempore. They receive the declaration and become the formal addresses for this constitutional transmission. Congress as a whole only becomes decisive if there's a dispute, and the bar is 2/3 of both chambers. Now contrast that with the viral line, 34 Republicans join. Even if 34 Republicans signed a letter urging action, that still doesn't trigger Section 4. It would be political pressure, not constitutional activation. And incentives cut hard against Section 4 becoming real. It detonates party coalitions. It risks public backlash. It creates uncertainty across government. And it requires cabinet officials, often appointed by the president, to take the first step. That's why serious explainers repeatedly note the political improbability. Even when public chatter is loud, even without a filed declaration, viral 25th Amendment narratives can have consequences. Governance drag. Agencies slow walk decisions when leadership stability is questioned. Market unease. Investors price political instability as risk, especially if the story suggests a sudden transfer of executive authority. Allied uncertainty. Allies need clarity on command and control and policy continuity. But the opposite is also true. The actual constitutional process, if triggered, would be unmistakable. It would not be a vague rumor. It would be documents, acknowledgments, and an immediate public constitutional confrontation. Scenario 1, most likely. Viral talk. No Section 4 action. What happens? Headlines keep inflaming revolt language. Politicians posture. No VP plus cabinet declaration appears. What would confirm? The absence of any documented declaration and continued routine executive operations. Scenario 2. Congressional pressure campaign. Still no Section 4. What happens? Members of Congress introduce resolutions, hold hearings, issue letters, or demand cabinet testimony, but the executive branch trigger is still missing. What would confirm? Public letters, resolutions with names, not anonymous claims, plus clear statements that they are calls for action, not proof of action. Scenario 3, low probability. Section 4 is initiated and contested. What happens? VP plus cabinet majority submits the written declaration. VP becomes acting president. President contests. Congress votes under the 2/3 standard. What would confirm? Acknowledged receipt of the written declaration by congressional leadership and public confirmation that Congress is operating under the Section 4 timeline and vote thresholds. We do not have verified evidence based on the constitutional trigger requirements that the viral claim 34 Republicans joined a 25th Amendment revolt equals an actual Section 4 action. Section 4 is not activated by a congressional headcount. If someone claims this is confirmed, the burden of proof is straightforward. Show the written declaration, show acknowledgement of receipt, show the constitutional steps unfolding. No document, no trigger. Watch list, what to watch next. Any named on-the-record statements from the vice president or cabinet about incapacity proceedings. Any acknowledged written declaration received by the speaker, president pro tempore. Any congressional announcements indicating the 48-hour, 21-day clock is in motion under Section 4. Concrete resignations or official actions that change the cabinet calculus, which can alter the majority math. If you're sharing this story, share documents, not vibes. This channel will update only when there is verifiable evidence that meets the constitutional standard.